Toeside Frontside 360 is very easy to spin thanks to starting with a twisted position. You can just untwist as you leave the wake. However, the landing can be kinda tricky unless you have a drill sequence like this to help you memorize the landing position. This video will take you through the steps needed to engrave the movement and landing position into your muscle memory, and even help you with your first low impact inside-out attempts. The first part of the drill focuses hard on the second half of the spin and landing position. Start switch stance in the middle of the wake and have your driver slow down to about 13 to 14 miles per hour. Now, move over away from center to set up and give yourself room to edge into the first part of the drill sequence. Let go with your back hand before you start. This is important, and most of the sequence will require that you start with only your front hand on the handle. Now that you are in the start position, edge towards the middle on your switch heel side with one hand. Once you cross the center line, turn the board into a switch stance one-handed backside slide. Hold the slide for a couple seconds, and then turn and pass the handle to finish in the regular cuffed riding position. Hold the cuffed riding position with your eyes looking back for a couple seconds to memorize the position, since this will be your landing position for the 360. Repeat this at least 3 times to engrave the movement into your muscle memory. When you're comfortable, move outside the wakes on the side you would normally land the Toeside Frontside 360, and turn to switch stance to repeat the previous step, but now on the outside of the wakes. Start with one hand, and edge out one-handed away from the wakes on your switch heel side edge. Flatten off, and then turn the board into the switch one-handed backside slide as you did in the previous step. Hold the slide for a couple seconds, then pass, and turn to the regular cuffed riding position. Ride looking back in this position for a couple seconds to memorize. Repeat this step at least 3 times to engrave the finish of the 360 before moving on to the next step. For the next step, we will move back to the center to our original start position to repeat the first step of the sequence. But this time we will add a little bounce or ollie to get into the switch stance one-handed backside slide. This will simulate impact and also help you memorize the landing portion of the 360. Sometimes it helps to do 2 small bounces instead of 1 to get into the slide, and you don't really need a lot of height to get into the slide. Just a small bounce enough to unweight you and then feel impact as you turn and slide. After landing in and holding the slide for a couple seconds, pass and turn into the regular cuffed position, and then ride looking back for a couple seconds. Repeat this 3 times and then move on to the next step if you feel comfortable. The next step is the same as last, but on the outside of the wake. Start on the outside switch stance with only your front hand on the handle. Edge out switch heel side with one hand, flatten off, and then bounce into the slide. Hold for a couple seconds, then pass and turn to the regular cuffed riding position. Repeat 3 times and then move on to the next step. Hopefully you've noticed the trend by now of holding the slide and holding the looking back while riding cuff position. These are very important to setting the axis and sticking the landing for the 360. The next step returns us to the middle of the wakes where you will do the 2 180s in the 360 separately, but one right after the other. Move over away from center like the previous steps, but this time start regular with 2 hands on the handle. Edge towards the center line on your regular toe side edge. When you reach the center line, flatten and do a Toeside Frontside ollie 180. When you land, continue to edge, switch heel side in the same direction, and ollie into the switch one-handed backside slide like you did in the previous steps. Slide, pass, and then turn into the regular cuffed riding position and ride looking back for a couple seconds. Repeat this double ollie 180 step in the middle of the wakes a few times to engrave all the movements of the Toeside Frontside 360. Next, move to the outside of the wakes and do the same steps on the outside. Start next to the wake regular with both hands on the handle, and then edge outward on your toe side. Flatten and do an ollie Toeside Frontside 180, land and edge switch heel side, flatten and ollie into a switch one-handed backside slide, pass, turn, and then hold the regular riding position for a few seconds to memorize. Repeat 3 times before moving on to the last step and your first 360 attempts. For this last step, speed up the boat just enough to give you a nice lip so you can jump from the inside of the wakes and land on the outside. Start in the middle, but over to the side like you did previously to give yourself room to edge toe side for the toe side jump off the wake. Pop off the wake, spin the 360, and try to land in the regular cuffed riding position looking back the same way you hopefully memorized in all the previous steps. If you have problems, repeat the drill sequence to further engrave the movements and position into your muscle memory. Then return to the inside out Toeside Frontside 360 attempts with better success.